It will seem strange, it should seem to you, that the first worship that men worship was not a man, not a god, but a goddess. The goddess Hathor, H-A-T-H-O-R, H-A-T-H-O-R, Hathor, symbolized as a cow with a sun disk between her horns, which the Jews adopted and called the golden calf. The present Hindus adopted it and called it the sacred cow. When you go to Egypt right here and the western bank of the Nile, there is a temple at a place called Dendera, D-E-N-D-E-R-A-H, built in honor of goddess Hathor, and you will see 3,500 faces at each of the columns and our places of this African woman. And that's why they will have you go to Mecca and to Palestine and to, Jerusalem and to Bethlehem, but never to Egypt, never to Ethiopia, never to Nubia, to see the ancient tombs dug into the walls. When I say a tomb, this building is less than a quarter the size of the average tomb. I'm not talking about an 8x5 thing, where all the records are there. When you talk about this, the source of this having come to Judaism, but where did Judaism get its belief source? When Abraham's supposed to have come from here with his 18-year-old daughter at 80 years of age, obviously he didn't mess with that girl once. 80 years old, walking across the desert with an 18-year-old wife. Let's be reasonable now. But all right, if it's in the Bible, then it's right. But you forget who wrote the Bible. You say it. Inspire men of God. I'm inspired by God too. Aren't you inspired by God? When you need to go to the toilet and you don't get an inspiration, what happens? There'll be doo-doo all over the place. So you better get an inspiration to go to the toilet, or you don't go, and you're in trouble. An inspired man by God, what does it mean? Does it mean he tells the truth? Then the Pope in Rome shouldn't use eraser. He's perfect. You shouldn't erase it. Nobody you know inspired. And all those writers had erasers, or at least they had a piece of their shirt to wipe with. But you let that word fool you so that anything anybody shoved down your throat, all they got to do is tell you, they're a man of God. That's right. Or they're inspired by God. What more inspiration they got than your daddy or you? You let them frighten you with that. There's nothing against religion. With all I'm going to say tonight, I'm a religious man. But I don't mean to be a foolish religious man. That's right.
So, hello Africans. I hope you're doing well where you are. And if you're not doing well, please do well where you are. It's good to be well. And it's not good not to be well. For this reason, I'm joined by my good brothers. I consider them very good brothers. We have...
hello YouTube family. My good name is Evans Raiola. I'm a YouTuber, content creator, and we are gathered here for a special topic. So stay tuned.
To Jindak Stories, and I hope that you're doing fine wherever you are today.
So this is the question of today, the topic of today. Many times we ask ourselves, we find ourselves in a position where there are rules of the land. There are things we are told to do this and don't do that. Follow this and don't follow that. Many times I personally ask myself, where did these things originate from? Where did these rules originate from? Where did the objectiveness of morality root from? And I'm told, because many African countries, brothers, many African countries have different folklore. They have different narrations of the origin of their morality. Some, because there is no one who is more spiritual. There's no race which is more spiritual than the African. We didn't believe in that one supreme God. We always believed in nature. We believed in the sun, the moon, the mountains, the forest, because even in African societies, we have some trees you can't cut down. You can't cut down some African trees. You understand? What is the African perspective of God, or the origin of God in an African perspective? And I'd like to ask Evans to give us his perspective on who is God according to him as an African.
That question is personal. Yeah? I'm a modern African man.
Yes.
So if I'm to answer this question personally, according to the knowledge I've gathered over the years,
Yes.
God is a supreme being, and we know of Jesus dying on the cross because of our sins, just to ensure that we are forgiven as a race. But now, if I'd like to go deeper to what we used to believe as Africans in the old days, as Africans, many a times Africans, we had our own gods. Before even the Europeans came to Africa to colonize us and preach the word of God to us. We had our own beliefs, just like you've mentioned. We believed that there are some things, if we saw in the mountains, right up in the skies, we could tell that the gods are hungry. We could tell that our ancestors are not in sync with whatever we were doing. You know? So if I was asked the origin of God in Africa, I'd say that it's deeper in morality and what we used to think that our ancestors will do if we did certain things. So if my dad, for example, beats my mom, then now the ancestors will be sad, and now they'd send a sign to us. And what we do, according to, I'm Kenyan, I'm Luo. Luo is a Nilotic group in Kenya. According to us, during those days, what was done, the two parties were given what is called manyasi. Manyasi was used as a cleanser to wrongdoings. That was actually the epitome of morality in the African community. So when we trace the origin of God in us, I'd say deeper to our ancestors, even before now the Portuguese docked in the East African coast and started preaching about Christianity.
A perspective from brother, and he has given it from the very core of the society, which is the family.
Sure. I'll say that God is, he doesn't have any origin according to our African beliefs or what we were taught to who God really is. Because look, we were told that God existed even before everybody. So God himself existed before everybody. So there is no way, or there is a person who knows where really God came from. You understand? And based on the African, maybe if I can take it back to the traditional societies or how we perceived who God is, and God manifested himself through who we call our deities, our ancestors. So if we had problem, or if there was a problem in the society, our ancestors could come through dream and they could tell us, something and something is here to happen. Don't do this, do that. Or don't use this road. Some people are planning to do to you this. So we have our own God, but he came in form of different gods. The deities that we believe in before, the ancestors who died also were used as other forms of deities who also helped us through the calamities, who also sent to us messages which were really important when we had problems in our society. So for me, I'll say that God didn't come specifically from a place. That's according to my understanding in the African perspective. But God was existing. God was, God was already there for we Africans, because we could worship him in different places. We could worship him in rivers. We could worship him in mountains. To mean that God was omnipresent, he was everywhere. Like we couldn't just point that we have our God there. Because some communities, for example, we the Luo, we have our how do we call them in Luo? We add these special rocks that we use to go and worship God. And even if today you go to Kisumu, Kisumu is a city in Kenya, one of the cities in Kenya. Yeah. Amongst them, we have the Luo people who predominantly occupied Kisumu because of the Lake Victoria. If you look at the history, so most of us, the Nilotic people, we are found along the Kisumu. So in Kisumu, the Luos had their own way of worshiping their gods. So if you go to Kikuyu, they'll talk about the moment they worship under trees for the Kikuyu. So I'll say that God is everywhere because different community worship their God in different places. So it's everywhere.
You know, I like how you say God was one, but we had also the nature. You've connected it to the nature, the rivers. There are some things you wouldn't do. You wouldn't pass in a particular road because if you pass there, maybe something bad would happen.
Sure.
You know, I remember that. African
spirituality.
Now, to back what we are saying now, we want to watch this video. It is a video that was made by one of the professors in the African diaspora. We understand that slavery took place, and this slavery made the African culture spill out of Africa. We had it get into the countries of the Caribbean. It went all the way up to countries such as Suriname, such countries. Now we want to watch this video and have a glimpse at it, and then we shall give you our thoughts by the end of the video, where we shall also have a deep critical analysis. So without further ado, let's dive into the video.
Dr. Charles McIntyre.
Hotel, Habarigani, Assalamu alaikum, peace unto you, my brothers and sisters. May the ancestors bless me with some wisdom with which I may share, and if that is not apparent, it is not their fault, and I will try again and again until I get it right. Is there anyone here who will admit that they are older than I, who will give me permission to speak?
Not me.
Sister
I
William.
am older than you and I give you permission to speak.
Thank you very much. My sister always gets confused about that. Shall I tell the truth? This is my second home, Philadelphia. In fact, I wanted it to be my first home, but the half that makes me whole, the totality of my reality, my partner of some 40 years is a musician, and somewhere along the line there was a blood oath of all African American musicians, and they cut wrists and tongues, etc., and they must live in New York. But it is through the understanding of the spiritual dimension of our music that we are able to make an understanding of how much we really lost and how much we need to regain. And as they adulterate our music, and I like rap, and I want that on the tape, but as the imitators and expropriators adulterate our music and try to reduce it to its most limited form, as we struggle continuously to stretch it to the fullest extension of what the divine creator endowed our people with, the ability to improvise and create and consistently come up with something new, which is our heritage, it gives us a measure of how creative and how deep the well of our intellectual and spiritual and creative ability is. And so I'm not going to give a lecture on music, although I do. I'm going to give this lecture on the concept of God, the African concept of God. But the analogy, sometimes when people think that they really can't understand and think that perhaps what someone's saying might be a little esoteric, might be a little confused. All you really have to do is go back to the music, you know, and listen to the music, because when African people listen to the music, they listen to the music here in the center of their soul, and then it comes out through the ears and stuff. We don't listen to the music here. And when we dance from here. We dance with our bodies. We dance with everything. And then by the time it gets to our feet, that's just minor. Right? You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And so you need to understand that. You need to understand that the Nile flows up. The Nile starts in the center of Africa, and the mightiest and most powerful and the longest and the most ancient river that man knows of flows out. It begins in the center of Africa. The White Nile and the Blue Nile begins up in the Ambas of Ethiopia, and they come together to perform the miraculous ability to take the dead soil that has come this long trip up from Tanzania and Uganda, and then it's refreshed by the waters of the Nile, because you know how mountain water picks up all this rich soil from the roots of the trees, and then it comes together at Khartoum, and where it comes together it produces this very rich soil. And so the people that settled at that place, at that time, where civilization and agriculture and math and science and philosophy all came together, they saw this miracle, and being wedded to the soil and understanding Mother Nature, which they called Isis, and understanding Mother Nature, Earth, which is the fundamental giver of all life. Earth brings the sky. Earth brings the rain. You know, they assist Earth, and so they worshiped all of this. They worshipped it in its divine principle, which was the female principle. It was the giver and sustainer of life. And when they look back on their own reality, and they look back at their own mothers, then they saw, aha, she is the giver and sustainer of life. And they revered this very wonderful principle of Mother Earth and Mother immediate first person that I am aware of outside of self. Are you following me? Yes. First person I am aware of outside of self is Mother. And that occurs before we ever enter this world. As a seed, we start out in this primordial ocean. You know, all ancient myths, all religious myths, I don't care what they are, discuss this primordial water. Now you have to say to yourself, because you are African people and all knowledge is rooted in reality. I don't care what Europeans tell you. All knowledge is rooted in reality, and all reality is rooted in experience, and all abstract thought is rooted in an analogy to experience from reality. Now they can tell you all that abstract reality. For them, that may be true, because if you sit 100,000 years on ice, maybe you do get abstract. You know, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. That is not my reality. I can't argue with that. Say you are a seed. Say that you understand. How many of you plant anything? When you plant, when you take that seed, you expect, you believe that you can get a perfect whatever you're planting. You nurture it. You believe in the perfectibility of that seed. Is that true? If you plant an orange, a mango, citrus, you Jamaican citrus, here we call them oranges. Okay, if you plant a rose, if you plant a cactus, when you put it in there and you treat it correctly and you nurture it and you do whatever you think you need to do to make it grow, you expect a perfect plant. You know you may not get it, but you believe the perfectibility of that seed's growth is possible. Is that not so? Why should it be different for humans? Why should it be different for us? Here we are, a seed in this primordial ocean, which is what? The womb. There are no windows in the womb. Total darkness. There is no activity in the womb when the seed is there. something must impregnate that seed, something that none of us really know, and some people speculate about to explain to us why life comes into being. But every single seed that breaks to become more than the one it was, to become the 2 and then the 3 and then the 4, right? Every seed breaks to become the stem. And then it breaks again to become the blossom. Is that not true? And so do we. So do we. We break to become the fetus, right? And then to become the child. And then to become the human. And that is being and becoming. Is it not so? You be, and everything, it is axiomatic that everything, even the thoughts that you are thinking now, are breaking into new thoughts. They are being when they come into existence, but they have the potential of becoming, right? Every single thing in the world bees and becomes. That's why black people say our bees, because we know we's going to become something, right? Now hold that thought, because it's very important, because the European God concept is just that God is. See, it's just that God is total. He just bees. He don't become nothing. He just exists. He, I say he. I'm talking about the European God. I'm not talking about the one y'all are going to get happy with tomorrow. I'm talking about the European God concept. And I don't think any African people, I don't care who you are, really understand the European God concept. You understand your God concept and translate out of your reality and your experience what God is. But you never stop to discuss with them, because I went and got a master's degree to find out what those suckers were talking about. They ain't talking about my God. Let me just give you, hold the thought, because I'm going to lose my thought. I'm at the European God concept, right? Okay? When I was working on a master's degree, they said, what is the commonality between music, whiskey, or alcohol, and church, or religion? And I was the only black in the class, as you know we usually are when we decide to get an advanced degree, right? And everybody wrote down their answers, and they all put narcoticize you. And the teacher, with great knowledge, says, correct. And I said, ain't what I got. And then, of course, they said, well, what do you have? You know, because I'm this little, you know, strange person in the class. I said, they make you happy. Because black people have music to get happy, we get high to get happy, and we go to church to get happy. God, this world is enough to narcoticize us. We don't need nothing else to put us out. We need something to put us in. And the teacher said, isn't that exotic? I said, hell no, that's cultural. You understand? It's very important to defend your culture. It's see, it isn't so much that we don't know we have a different God concept. And most African people do. They say, God is in my heart. He ain't out there. God is in my heart. If God don't be for me, don't nobody be for me. That's not that God you got to meet at the end of the trip. They got that little book, Lois denied that she's older than Shashi, one sin, you know, right? You don't even get to talk to this sucker until after your trip is over. How are you going to improve your trip? I was Catholic. I used to say, this is strange, you know, because he don't talk to you. You can't talk to him. He don't see you. You can't see him. He don't hear you. You can't hear him. He has no responsibility to you, and you ain't sure if you got any to him, because he may have already consigned your butt to the devil. I mean, you know, Lucifer may be who you should be hip to, and you need to hold that thought too. So you see, but in the African world, God is not this, I'm going to smite the person. In the African world, God can smite you. God can do some serious things to you, but God also allows you to tap into the power of divine existence. And we know that because our music is an invocating of God, the invoking of God. That's what our music does. And you know it. You know when we got to get happy and we start to move, and you watch them sisters' feet go, they go faster than some of these blades out here, you know. You ever watch people get happy when they're singing that gospel music every Sunday morning? I watch watch Bobby Jones, you know, do you get them here? The gospel train, and you watch those sisters and they start singing and their feet are going so fast. I got out of bed one day and tried to make my feet go that fast because I thought I was a hip dancer, but I was not empowered. You understand what I'm saying? I was just trying to imitate the action, and those people don't know their feet are going at all. They don't know their feet are going at all. They're singing and their feet are going and they're getting happy, and some of us, tell the truth, especially here in Philadelphia, some of us that's a little too much. It cannot be too much to invoke the power of divine existence. It can only be too much if you do not understand what the power of divine existence is. And there is no question about us being chosen by divine existence because we're here. You know, because we're here. Every single thing Lucifer could think to do to us, he has done to us here in the belly of this beast. Every single thing. But we are here. And we are here competitively. And we are here transforming the world. And we are here telling the world, you can no longer believe in a divine existence to which you are not accountable and which is not accountable to you. You can no longer do that because you've destroyed the air, the water, and the earth. And we are humans and we need accountability. You understand? And the African God concept makes you accountable every day and every moment, like that orange seed is accountable to respond to the nurturing that is making it grow. You are in the womb, primordial ocean that all religions discuss. You are in the womb. What is in the womb? Water is in the womb. It is a deep, bottomless, topless, sideless ocean, right? If you're just a seed. And it isn't until some powerful, unexplained molecular interference occurs and some miracle causes birth. It's not sex. I can prove that. How many of you have had sex in the last year or two? Well, where's all the birth? So that dispenses that, right? It's not sex. I mean, sex may be contributive, but it's not sufficient, right? You understand what I'm trying to get to? People are telling us lies, and we are believing it. Sex does not bring forth children. It could. You got to have a healthy body. You got to have a healthy environment for a seed to grow. Let me tell you about immaculate conception. All conception is immaculate. Dirty seeds don't grow. You understand what I'm saying? If you got a bad seed, what happens to it in the soil? It don't take. All conception is immaculate. We need to understand that. We need to understand. Now, this is the way Africans look at the process of birth. They look at the process of birth as this miracle. But more important, they look at the process of birth as an understanding of the miracle of all existence, because that's what each experience is supposed to teach you. Not just this happened here, but how what happens here you can intuit. You know, intuition, you can intuit. You know, like we say, I'm getting into it. You know, we can intuit, intuition. We can go from the central nervous system and understand. We can apprehend. We can grasp an understanding because we have seen it in its universal application. So every single mystery system, every single religious system begins all of humanity in a flood. What's a bigger flood than the womb? What is the universal water experience that we all have? Why every time in the, as John Clark calls it, Jewish folklore that we now read as the Bible? And I say that because I have this Pentecostal student who tells me the Bible is the Word of God. I say all words are the Word of God because God gave us the power to invoke the Word, no more. So I mean, but then we have to look at how it has been translated and transliterated, etc. Okay? We're reading, and I said, well, what is this unadulterated Word of John? The King James Version. I said, oh, God went and talked to King James and told him to write the Bible. Not the Gideon Bible, not the Catholic Bible, not the Jewish Bible. Doesn't it tell you that if you got all these different versions that perhaps there may be a mistake in the one you're reading? But I'm not putting down the Bible. I don't put down anybody's religion. I don't put down any, I'm just saying, take what you know, go into your own spirituality when you enter that holy book. See, take your experience and say, aha. You know, how many of you came from a rib? So now we can kill that. And there are no rib people here. I can go back to my analogy of the womb. Now I'm going to have to be careful, you know. There may be one or two of you who came out the rib. And, you know, I don't know about other ethnic groups. Maybe they all came from a rib. They sure didn't come from the same womb that we came from, you know. But that's another lecture. Okay. So we all came out of this primordial ocean. In the beginning was the womb. Do you know that in the beginning of Earth, you know what makes Earth habitable for human beings is water. All of the planets are too hot because they don't have the balance of water that we have that cooled off this particular planet. Right? So water is the source of life. Now let's go back to the now. You have these two things, and what do you have? You have this miraculous water. Already we've made a connection between the water that brought us life, the water that sustains us, because sun does not sustain you. Sun is nice, but it does not sustain you. You can live without sun. You cannot live without water. You can even maybe live without food, but you cannot live without water. 98 or 80 some odd % of you is water. So Osiris, which is the principle of water, of moisture, of all forms of water, is considered a male principle. Why? Because Isis, Mother Nature, Earth, is considered a female principle. But what makes Earth work? Water. Otherwise you have a desert, right? You have destruction, right? So when we hear these terms, Isis, Osiris, Ra, Ra is the principle of illumination. Okay? Amun is the principle of that which is hidden, that which is not known. But what you have, let me just give you a few of them, is Amun, that which is unknown, hidden. Ra, that which is revealed. Ptah, that which is expressed. Because what is the point of something being revealed to me if I cannot share it with you? Okay? Now, so when you get into the ancient African belief system and understanding of God, there are a couple of terms, kind of big terms, but there are a couple that you need to understand. We are taught that there's a one God, right? I would like you to put ness on the end of it. There is a oneness. Okay? Just like there's a one you, but the one you is a oneness. You are not just you. You're the thoughts you think, you're your eyes, you're your ears. You understand what I'm saying? The one in the many. Everyone has more than the one in order to be. Because as I said before, anything that be has the potential of becoming, and so therefore it always has to be at least two, right? You are what you are and what you can become. And that you also, whatever you are not. So you follow the law of opposite. So in ancient Africa, you had Osiris, who was water, right? And you had Isis, who was earth. and you put them together and you have a totality. You have a balance. You have the male and female principle. Okay? You have a back. What am I telling you? What do you know there is? A front, right? You have one. What do you know there is? If I say the first thing I don't like about you, what do you say? What's the second? Okay? The law of opposites leads to the law of complementarity. Because what's the opposite of opposite? Complementarity. Okay? So if there's a male, there's a female. In order to be whole, one has to have the male and female principle. If you have Set, which is the principle of dryness, you have Nephthys, which is the principle of moisture, and so forth and so on. So now when people start to study ancient Kemetic or Egyptian philosophy, they get a little confused. And I'm not going to give you a lecture on that either, but I just want you to understand that what Africans understood was that divine existence is the way the European identifies it, is the one. Because everything begins with the one, right? You can't have a two if you don't have a one. But what they did was they stopped there. They stopped there. The one that never becomes anything but creates everything. But see, Africans don't do it that way. The European says the one that never becomes anything created everything but is not connected to anything. Europeans say the one thing that is something is no thing, which is God. Right? Because if I tell you this is God, you say that ain't God. But if I say African, I say this is God, you say yes, this is God, everything is God. If it's omniscient, all-knowing, if it's omnipotent, all-powerful, if it's omnipresent everywhere, that's all-knowing, all-present, everywhere, all places, then what is the commonality? All. Oneness. Not one, but oneness. It's a unity. Existence is a unity, but within a unity are component parts, right? Now the component parts are called hypostases. Hypostasis is how is the one yet the many. You know that because we say out of many one, or Jamaica, you know. One people out of it, one room, one lecture, but many people. But it's still one. But it's oneness, not one. It's very important to understand this difference, because that means that we, if you want to see God, if you want to see divine existence, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Now what does that do? Check that out. What does that do? Now before I get to Europeans, I'll show you everything in the ancient African world reflected this understanding of divinity. One, vertical, meant divine man. Say that. One is what? Divine man. Yeah. Vertical. Horizontally, one was fallen man. Because if you get to be divine, you can fall, right? Okay. Now, the semicircle represented spirit. So two is what? Spirit with what? Fallen man, right? Now what's three? Double spirit, right? Now what's four? Divine man, fallen man, divine man, held up by divine man. So what's five? Fallen man, held up by divine man, assisted by spirit, right? What's six? Six is divine man with double spirit, which is totality, right? What's seven? Fallen man held up by divine man. What's eight? Double wholeness. What's nine? Wholeness held up by divine man. What is 10? 10 is divine man with totality added up is the higher order of the original one, which is what you're supposed to do with your life. You start off with one and you move through all these stages of original divinity. You start off with stages, you become whole. You become a person. You become mind, body, and spirit, and intellect, right? You're endowed with free will. What is free will? Free will is the ability for you to not be locked into your basic instincts. A cat must be a cat, unless Hollywood gets hold of him. You understand? Animals must stay within the confines of their basic nature. Is that not so? Yes. But humans have full reign to use their minds to either stay within their basic nature or to move on to whatever they want to. They can become more bestial, and we know many do, or they can become extremely intellectual, and we know some do, and they become very spiritual, right? The choice is whose? The choice is yours. That's what free will is. That is precisely what free will is. It has nothing to do with original sin. It has nothing to do with original sin. Now let's take the myth of original sin. Now I'm not asking you all to believe anything I tell you today. All I'm asking you to do is look and see if what I say makes sense. And if what I say makes sense, then go back to what you believe and explore what you believe, because faith should be based in reality. Faith should be informed by your intuition and your heart, then your mind, so that your spirit will be easy with what you believe. Your spirit should be easy with what you should believe. It should follow ma'at. Ma'at is balance and order. In the beginning, you came into the world, you were one, you were a seed. You apprehended the fact that you were one because you were in this water, and at some point as you began to germinate, you began to feel wetness or hear or touch or something. Senses became apparent to you, gurgling, hearing, senses, and then you became conscious of what? The other. Who was the other? The other was mother. You came into a blinding light. Wow! The first light you ever saw in your life would be the most blinding light you ever saw, right? That's why babies cry. There are no windows in the womb. You have never seen light. You've heard, you've touched, you've eaten. You've heard the rhythm of the heart. You've heard the sound of the waves. You know all of the elements except fire and light in the womb, right? Okay? You come into the world and you born 9 months in, 9 months out. This is before Nestle's Quick and all these bottled baby days. Who sustains you? The human being cannot live in the world without what? Mother's milk. In Africa, mothers nurture their babies for 2 years. They do not have sex for 2 years because they concentrate on a child-centered survival. You know any African brothers that are going to wait 2 years? And knowing brothers have such poor taste, African sisters say, I know that I've taken care of this child, so I have picked Karen for you. First wife picks second wife. Polygyny is a design of women because the community was designed to raise the children. And the children are always attended to. So, man looks around this room and he sees 4 old women or 2 old women. And you have to realize man does not know that he is responsible for the bringing forth of the child, right? But woman has to know that. After all, she sees the child come out. Now let's look at the myth of the Garden of Eden. Woman is a mystery system. She can bleed a week without dying. Now we're talking about extrapolate back. Take off all your clothes and just go back to nature. You only know nature. No lights, no TV, no nothing. Just you and nature. And what do you see? You see this miraculous human being that can bleed a month without dying, a week without dying. And not just one woman, but all these women can do that. Okay? This is a miracle. Man cannot bleed 10 minutes without dying. Without thinking about dying. So you're worshiping this very miraculous human being. She brought us here. Now mind you, you're not worshiping your girlfriend. You're worshiping the mothers that brought the community into being. You understand what I'm saying? It is a vertical relationship. We're not talking about Susie May and Johnny Jones. We're talking about child and mother. Because the first principle in life is the giver and sustainer of life. That's why we love God, Father love, because he is the creator. And that is not to say that the God that Europeans tell you exists does not exist. But in our primitive state right now, which we all are in, what we see is experience. We know we definitely came from this particular person. We know that we suckled this breast. We know that we survived because of this love. You understand what I'm saying? And so we revere these people who takes care of us when we're sick. So woman is a miracle system. Now there's another miracle system in this garden. It's the tree of life that grows and drops fruit down for us, so it also helps us sustain. And then there's another miracle in this system, and that's this little wiggly thing, the snake. I have this ureus, the snake. Now, one day I was trying to figure out, now why does the snake symbolize wisdom? You know, it's called the ureus. It symbolizes wisdom, and it looks like this. And if you look like the primordial waters is called Nun, N-U-N. And if you write that, you'll get a wave, because vibrations is what brings everything into being, molecular transference. You understand what I'm saying? You know, like black people say, man, it's the vibes. You know, the vibes ain't cool. You know, what's happening between us. Because that's what really brings life into being. It's not the sex. It's whatever vibrational interaction causes that seed to burst into life. And so the snake represents all that. But the snake represents something so profound, it's so simple. Have any of you ever seen a snake shed its skin? When a snake sheds its skin, it sheds all of its skin, even the covering over its eyes. And so if you look, it looks like the snake has died and immediately rebirths, incarnates. And you say, that sucker has all the wisdom in the world, because it can die and incarnate immediately, right? And it does it several times. You know, snakes periodically shed. Now, you're a primitive person, and you're saying, now, when we die, you know, nothing comes forward. But the woman has this life and death interaction, and she brings forth a person, doesn't she? And what is attached to this person, this little person? What's attached to it? An umbilical cord onto this blood, and it's the snake. And the placenta, you bury. You do know primitive people bury the placenta. And what grows in that very rich earth that is a tree of life, okay? Now, we're beginning to see a connection here. I bet that woman been talking to that snake. And I bet that snake didn't tell that woman everything. Just a little bit. Just enough for her to bring forth another person. But the other person is dependent. It's not a full-blown entity. And so man is looking, and he said, I can't bring forth life. I can't die and come back to life. You know. And woman also learned to milk the snake. You know what happens when you milk a snake and drink the venom? If you don't die, you have visions and you can foretell the future. And so woman becomes a mystery system in the inner circle. So what does man do? Man develops a mystery circle in the outer circle. That's what the temples and the pyramids and all that about. You come into the world in the womb, you go out in what? a tomb, right? Womb tomb. What is the shape of the pyramid? The shape of the pyramid is like a breast, is it not? And what do you have down in the Holy of Holies is the womb with the fallopian tube. Because if you're going on to the next world, you might as well go the same way you came in. Because fundamental in the African world is birth, life, rebirth, death, birth, life, rebirth, death, birth, life, rebirth. And so, how do we know that? Because Ra rises every morning, comes up in the east, hits its highest point at noon, comes back down and dies, and goes on this heavy trip in the darkness of night, and comes what? Next morning, rebirth. You understand? The cycle of existence, the being and becoming, the highest point, etc. Now this is what informed the African mind. And you will find this among the Yola, J-O-L-O-F, in West Africa, among the South Africans. You will find it among the Nuk people. You will find it among the ancient Egyptians, which they keep trying to tell us Egypt is not in Africa, but somehow the Nile is in Africa, and somehow Egypt is not in Africa, but developed the Nile Valley civilization, and the Nile is in Africa. And how we get that together, I really don't know. But what they want you to believe is that Egypt is not in Africa. And the reason they want you to believe Egypt is not in Africa is so that you will believe that Africans are not in Egypt. Yeah. And if you believe Africans are not in Egypt, then they think they can take Africans out of world history. Right. And that's why they don't want to call you an African American, because then you would know that you are responsible for all that is. You see?
Yeah. So it's so impactful, and I don't know, it starts with Eugene now.
Yeah, sure. One thing that I like about generally these African American lady is that one, she is recognizing herself as an African, and that's just the beginning of everything. Because when you talk about Africa, you're talking about the synonym of spirituality, and that's where everything really starts. You know, the motherland, the Alkebulan, where the reality, people talk about reality. We're not talking about theories as people who are in England or people who are in the offices. We're talking about people who are experiencing things real time. So I like the fact that she also recognizes the nature and the spiritual part of the nature, and how we human beings we relate with the nature. Because I had a talk about the rivers, and what generally she says is really important in regards to these physical features, amongst other things that we have also talked about. And one thing that I'll also like to say that I like about, we believe that women are usually spiritual connected. They are more spiritual than men, you know. Mm-hmm. So because even here in Africa, you'll be told that as a man, for you, if you want your life to be happy, just find the right woman. And if you want your life to be miserable, then I'll not say it as bad, but I'll say find a terrible woman. That's when things will get wrong. And she also recognized the plight of women in disseminating this spiritual information. And generally that's what I like about her. I'd like to hear also from you before just saying, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
From me or from Evans?
Anybody from you.
You can start.
Okay, let me do it then. Now, the sister announced something about River Nile, and about River Nile providing food, providing fertile soils to the people of Africa. She talked about the mountains along which River Nile moves through.
Yeah,
because
sure.
The source of the Nile is in Uganda. It's Lake Victoria, and it goes all the way up to Egypt, where it drains into the Mediterranean Sea. You see, one interesting thing about the Egyptians is that they believe that, this one is crazy actually, what I'm about to say. They believe, everyone has a theory of creation.
We ready.
The Egyptians say their god Ra masturbated into the River Nile.
Damn.
And that is how humans came into Earth.
What did you just say? Their god masturbated.
Yeah, on the River Nile. And so the ancient Egyptians, not the ones we have today, they had a holiday for masturbation.
Damn, that's gross. That's really gross.
You can check this online, even right now.
I think people just have their stipulation in regards to things. But what I know about the River Nile, just like you said, look, earliest forms of agriculture, which we know that our agriculture in Egypt began. We have the presence of River Nile, which really played an important role. And even look at this in a spiritual way. God Himself is the provider, right? And He Himself is the one who made the river to be fertile, so that people can get the food, so that people can get their living out of the water. Because we have people who fish in these places, they get their money out of it. We have people who get the fertile silt, which they use it for agriculture. So the River Nile really is playing an important role even today. And even if you look at the earliest forms of agriculture which were done in Egypt, you realize that River Nile played a significant role. And if we say that God is the provider, and that's a true definition of provision. Yeah.
So about the story of Egypt, they have many gods. They have the sun god, who is Ra, who is also the creator of humans. He masturbated, and then from that is when we had the first humans. For the Kikuyu, they believe Mount Zion is Mount Kenya. They believe that the Kikuyus were created by a god called Ngai. Ngai created the first man, who was called Mumbi. And the woman was called Agikuyu. So it is God who created Ngai. Ngai created Agikuyu and Mumbi, and then Mumbi and Agikuyu gave birth to 9 daughters. And from these 9 daughters is when we have the 9 dialects of the Gikuyu language. And this is just Kikuyu. We also have some other tribes that believe what they want to believe. You understand?
Yep.
The thing is that we acknowledge there is God. We acknowledge there's a supreme being in Africa. Despite these different narrations, but we acknowledge there is somebody who created us. We don't have evolution in African spirituality.
That's just brought some thought that we Africans, we actually do not believe in only one supreme God when we look at this thing traditionally. When you go to an African village, I like giving example of where I am coming from. Once again, I'm an Ilot, guys. From where I come from, a pastor, a modern day pastor, can visit a home and then says, this kid could be having a problem. He could be having some demonic thing that should be spelled out of her. Then again, they can say, we need to perform certain rites.
Exorcism.
Yeah, we need to perform certain rites to remove whatever is inside of them.
The demon.
The demon itself.
Okay.
But at the same time, they'll move outside the bracket of Christianity, the bracket of the church, then now start doing other spiritual rites that again are not of the Christian world or the Christian realm, they can now start indulging and starting speaking to the ancestors, asking them how they can handle this same issue. Some people cut the head of the chicken to solve certain issues. Just that shows us that the African, we Africans, even before Christianity came in, we had our forms of just working through things spiritually. So it's way deeper that Africans, we do not believe in one supreme God. That's one thing I can tell you guys for sure.
And you see,
have gods.
Yeah, we have gods.
Okay, for me, I'll put it like this. I'll say that's a point where I might differ with you a little bit. We believe in one God. We are a monotheist people, we Africans. Now, the interpretation of God, we have one God and we have semi-gods, the deities, the ancestors, the dead, all those people. They act as the descendants of God. Now, something wrong is here to happen to you. And then God says, you have your brother right there who is tomorrow going to have an accident, for example. Because you've been hearing cases where, and this is just, any African who is watching the video can relate. I don't know of my brothers from the diaspora. But look, you've heard these people saying that, I was to board this car and then I had a dream, a person warning me, no, don't board this car. You're going to get an accident, right? Mm-hmm. So this is an ancestor who is telling you this. But you get to realize that we have one God, but under this one God, we have other gods who conform to that one God. I don't know. Okay, for me, this is just how I check it. Yeah. We have one God, but we have other deities, the small gods. We have the ancestors. We have different. I won't say that they are one God, but we have different gods who conform to one God.
Isn't that polytheism now?
It can be polytheism.
Okay, I think I'm understanding Eugene's idea is that we have one head, and then from this head we have the hierarchy of beings.
Yeah.
Where we have the ancestor, the spirits, and then we have the dead.
Yeah.
The living dead.
We have the living dead.
Sure.
And then we have the living. That is what we are trying to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. But we have one God at the top.
One who is supreme.
Yes.
Among these other ones.
Yes.
But now, before we continue, I understand that perspective. But I'd like to ask you guys one question. Let's now go to the Bible. That's the African way of the hierarchy of being.
Let me tell you one thing.
God,
let me tell you one thing, brother. Even before going, Christianity alienated us from our spirituality.
Okay.
So the Bible itself, it's a word of God, but you get to know that the Bible was, it was edited and it was manipulated for it to favor some people. And one thing that I always say is that if there are people who will be judged harshly are the white evangelicals, because they had the information, they had the knowledge. We Africans, we were innocent and we prayed to our one God. Then missionaries came to Africa. They introduced the Bible, and then the Bible was being printed to different places. And now we could see different people. I'll ask you one question. Why do you think we have independent churches? Because Christianity wants to take spirituality from you. And that's the most important way in which we Africans, we connected with our God. Tell me if this is not strong. A person can warn you of an impending danger. Isn't that not God?
Like a random person.
Yes. They come to you through dreams and tell you, tomorrow you'll be going in an event. Don't drink that water. They'll put something. Tell me if that's not God.
That's God.
That's God. That is the African spirituality, where we interacted with our ancestors. But now Christianity came. They started calling our spirituality as dogma. That's why. So if you say that you are for the Bible, the Bible is good. I'm not saying it's wrong. Don't get me wrong. But you get to know that it was one of the things which was used to alienate us from our African spirituality. Yes, that's my take, or that's what I believe, and it is there. You can check it out. Yeah. There was an important point that Evans was trying to raise, and I think he never said it.
Raiola, that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was an important point that Raiola was saying, and then we had to just continue watching the video. In light to that, I would like to say that in as much as we are saying, before going back to what the African American lady has said, is that when we are making the reference to the Bible, we have the Bible, like the Ethiopian Bible, which talks about what really happened in existence, of what really happened according to the history of black people in Africa, because it is also the Ethiopian Bible that reveals the true color of Jesus, which says that Jesus is a person of color. So just to say what you were saying before about looking at the Bible is an important part of information, also important part of history, because some of us black people, we believe that the Bible usually talks about the black history. But the people who were given the power to hold this Bible, they changed, they manipulated the Bible. That's why I was trying to differ with when you said that now you are a modern Christian. And when you say you're a modern Christian, there's a problem, because modernity has erased African spirituality. And just as you so listened, the woman said that we had our God everywhere, and every African say that they have their God in their hearts. So for you to reach the God, for you to reach the deities, you need to tap in. So tapping in is tapping into the spirit and saying things in a spiritual world, because she said that the European God is a God that he doesn't talk to you, you doesn't talk to him, you can't reach to them, you can't respond to them. But the African God is always everywhere. He's always omnipresent. What you just need to do, you just need to tap into the God. And that's, I'm talking about living things, saying things in a spiritual way, saying things in a spiritual world. For example, the death of Sonia Mercy. You've heard about the story, right? Yeah. So before even the cops went into the house, the lady in the spiritual world, she was already saying, I curse you in the name of God. To mean that for the white person, it was just saying this lady as a person who is trying to curse, but the lady had already seen the bad spirit which was in this guy. This means that we as Africans, or we as black people, and I'm not trying to be a black supremacist by saying this. It is because this lady saw this in a spiritual way, and we Africans, we black people, we are so much strong when it comes to the spiritual world. So yes, the Bible, it's a good thing, and I will say that it's a good thing, but we don't need to forget of the spiritual world or the spiritual part of the black people's existence. Yeah.
If there's one thing you actually changed my mind. You know, at times it's good to learn.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've noticed is in sync with whatever she said and whatever you said,
yeah,
is that God reflects in Africans differently rather than other races outside there.
Yes.
How we connect with God is totally different. And I think I took our connection with God as another way to say that we are worshiping many gods.
Yeah.
Now I get to understand the hierarchy of beings that you all were talking about. Mm-hmm. But now that, in a way, mm-hmm, to me, having to manifest God in so many ways and having to perform certain rites, that just shows me how polytheism works, mm-hmm, in the African culture.
Yeah.
You know, because we want to do it differently to another person outside there. I'm trying to represent somebody who's not African. Mm-hmm. You know, they'd say that this is witchcraft. Mm-hmm. You know, we even see in the modern world people who drink liquor. When you want to take alcohol, you first pour.
Yeah.
And you want to say that this is for the ancestors.
Yeah.
You know, they're dry down there. You need to give them a taste of the same. To somebody who's not African, somebody who's seeing it differently would say that we are performing a rite.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, I get to see the connection now.
Yeah. And also, if you want to know that we Africans, we connect with God in a different way. You know, we say that music is spiritual, right? So it is the food for the soul. And it's not about the beats and everything. And I want us to look at how Africans, even before coming out in music, look at the regalia, everything that they wore. It was so traditional. You find that the drum was made by animal skin, and before this animal skin the skin was used, it was the blood was spilled. And you understand the African understanding of animals and the spilling of animals' blood, and it meant a lot of things. So even the regalia that we Africans have while playing our own traditional music, I'm not talking about the modern music, I'm talking about traditional music, it helped us connected with our spiritual world. Because even before making of these drums, making of these, you know, everything and everything that they wore, already a ritual was performed. Mm-hmm. Because spilling of blood really meant a lot of things. And even if you look at the Bible, we use the animal skins to, not animal skins, but animals' blood to perform rituals to God, you know. Yeah, so definitely it meant a lot of things, you know. Yeah.
Wow. So that was a nice one by Eugene, Docu Stories, and Evans Rayola. Now, I think I have to add something concerning African spirituality. You know, first of all, when we say Western religion, many people think of Christianity to be the Western religion. But one thing people forget is that even the white people, the Europeans, the white, they are not the authors of Christianity. Christianity has its root in the Middle East. Middle East is the part of the world that touches Europe, it touches Africa, it touches Asia. The only part in the world that touches 3 continents is Middle East. And here is where we have the 3 Abrahamic faith. That is Islamic, we have Christianity, and also we have Islamic, Christianity, and Judaism. So the people of Israel don't really believe in Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ was a Jew. It's such an irony. They don't believe in one of their own. You know, it's funny. And so, because they didn't believe in Jesus Christ, they were easy to let go of Christianity. If they believed, it wouldn't have reached here. They would have made it their own. Just like Hinduism in India. It's not as widespread as Islam and Christianity. But how many Africans are practicing Judaism? A very, very small percentage. Actually, there's a video that was done by brother Go Black to Africa. He was trying to tell us, he was trying to show those the black Jews, because I believe as well that we have black Jews in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I think Ghana as well. Now, when we say Western religion, we don't really refer to Christianity, because people from Scandinavia, even if you watch from the movies, these people had their own religion. They did their own sacrifices. They made their own gods. Christianity in itself is very, very old. Actually, the oldest churches are found in Ethiopia. Last time I checked, Ethiopia is in Africa.
Sure.
So Africans have always had different spirituality. We have Christianity as well. Now, it all boils down to faith. It all boils down to faith. Because I can't come to your community and I say, hey, worship my God, he's greater than yours. I also can't come to Evans's community. I say, worship my God, he's greater than yours. Because it can't happen. You need to have proof. Then, if you say so, show us. And here's where we also had the Mount Carmel contest. The Mount Carmel contest was a contest between the prophet Elijah and the 400 prophets of Baal. Yeah, these people are also doing polytheism. And so from this contest, it was there to show who is greater, who is the supreme being, the supreme of the supremes. It turns out we had a supreme being who is the God of Israel. And it's the same God we are worshipping today. But the idea of the topic was African concept of God. Yeah. Now Christianity came and it washed out our spirituality, as Eugene said. It came and washed it out. What we were left with is Christianity. So Christianity took place of the African spirituality. But I remember how it came in. It's very different. Some of these missionaries were fake. They brought the Bible. They gave the African the Bible, and they took the land from the Africans. But then we can't go ahead and say Christianity is all about falseness. Those were people hiding behind Christianity. Now, when we speak of African spirituality, we also need to include Christianity as part of African spirituality. Ethiopia being a good representative of Africa. And to reinforce my argument, we can check it on the Bible. The book of Isaiah speaks of an Ethiopian eunuch. The book of Acts speaks of an Ethiopian that met with Philip. That was very, very long time ago. Very, very long time ago. So Christianity is part of African culture. It's part of our tradition. Back then, Jesus Christ and God were just one amongst the other gods. To the Ethiopians, he might have been the supreme, but to the remaining, we still had these other deities. Yeah.
You know, it's true what you've said. You get to realize as the reason as to why Africans later on, they say that no, we are not going to allow to be whitewashed. We want to have our own independent churches, in as much as we are following the scriptures in the Bible, but we will also love to have our God. We will also love to follow our own traditional ways of, animal sacrifice and everything, because even the animal sacrifice and everything is in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Even human sacrifice.
Even human sacrifice, yeah. Right? But you see, the modern Christianity, we don't have that. Mm-hmm. Today we are paying. We are paying the church. We are using money. There are modern ways of paying. Giving your offertory to God. It's not like in the past where you had to have some animals that you had to give. Mm-hmm. So I believe, in as much as we had Africans who didn't want to let go of their spirituality, and I know that the Bible, it's also an important part of a black man's history. Mm-hmm. Because today, if you ask African Americans or Black Americans who know really history, they'll tell you that the Bible was kind of talking about the black history. Mm-hmm. Because everything was symbolic, the suffering of black people and everything. So yeah, there is part of the Bible which is true. But you also get to know that the Bible was, it went ahead on, and it was mixed, and people interpreted the Bible in a different way. Yeah. And some of the things which perpetuated the suffering of a black person in the United States, it is Christianity. You shall bow down to your slave. There are some scriptures that says like that. So if you talk about slavery and everything to a black person, it is never the same. So that's why some people are still questioning Christianity, whereas some people are seeing to it that Christianity, of course, it is a religion, it's a white man's religion, and it washed away the African spirituality. It washed our own traditional ways of believing things. However, we have our own Bible, like in Ethiopia, which also has the right description of who Jesus is and who Jesus was. So for me, I'll just say that that explains why we have independent churches. They didn't want to let go their spirituality, but at the same time, there were some historical things which happened in the Bible that they also want to keep with them. Yeah, so that's generally my take on, the question of Christianity and everything.
This just shows me how deeper this thing is than the way I was saying it. Because now what I'm learning from both of you guys is that we Africans were having the purest form of spirituality before Christianity was brought about. So in everything that we Africans were doing, we were actually doing the right things before they robbed us and gave us their analogy of Christianity and how God should be served, which is now bringing the confusion. That's why you're talking about the independent churches.
And
there is
and sorry to cut you. If you want to know that this is truth, Christianity came, right? And Christianity, it's a white man's religion. Look, in the past, did you ever saw Africans bombing each other?
No.
Did you ever look at what is happening in Palestine? Some people will say that that's a religious war. Look at what is happening between Palestine and Israel, right? Majorly, the major base of this conflict, they are based on different religions, Christianity, Islam, right? But look, the African religion or the African spirituality, did we have certain kind of things where we are bombing each other? So Africa is more civilized. Now look at who are those people who are behaving like animals. It is the Western people that are the one who are bombing each other, that are the one who are fighting against each other. We're not doing that amongst ourselves, you see. So this shows you that we are civilized, and our spirituality, because we had our own rules, that if we do some things, there are consequences. Yeah, so not just to cut you, but I just wanted to bring that point. But you can continue. You are talking about
room for him.
Oh.
Now,
Take a frame.
Eugene, there is something you said about sacrifices, animals, humans. Do you mind again clarifying? Where were you? Okay, what was the argument to introduce the concept of sacrifices, animals, and I even said humans?
You see, there are things which are connected. The lady talked about the African music, right? And I want you to look at the traditional African music. Look at the regalia that those people put, right? You'll find that they add, they wore animal skin and everything. Look at the concept of animal in an African traditional society and the concept of animal in the modern day today. The concept of animal in African traditional society is like animal was a pathway of communication between God and human being. Why am I saying so? Because it was the animal which was used to perform sacrifices. For example, if we had droughts in our lands, we could do some sacrifice and we have our rain. So animal sacrifice, it was part of our ways of worshiping. And also in the Bible, we add ways of worship like animal sacrifice, which is also part of animal worship. You know, you talked about the human sacrifice when God told I don't know his name. He had his only one son, and then God was testing him that you could, was it Isaac or somebody?
Yeah. Abraham and Isaac.
Yeah. And God told him that you're going to sacrifice your son, to mean that even human sacrifice was there. But my concentration was on the animal sacrifice. It played an important role. So for the connection of human beings with the external force, that's the God himself, was for us to communicate or see his presence, we were sacrificing these animals. And I've said, for example, when we had droughts or when we had diseases, calamities, we could do some sacrifices to appease who we believe to be God.
After Christianity was brought, and now the African spirituality that we had, we can now see the confusion. That's why I was telling Eugene his point on different churches coming up. African believers have started coming up with churches that now would reflect how they can serve God in their own way.
Sure.
Churches like the famous Legio Maria in Kenya. You know, they do their things differently. The way they clap while they're praising God is different. You know, when you go to a Catholic church, you'd see them do things differently. But now when you go to Legio Maria, they clap hardly, they speak in tongues. Some people fall down, and there's a lot of activity in the church. Things are just different. They're trying to do things the African way. They're trying to do things in a way that they did even before the Portuguese brought Christianity in Africa, specifically in East Africa. So what I wanted us to discuss, even before we end this video, is the aftermath. You know, we were talking about the originality of our faith as Africans, and then there is this other Christianity that was brought about. Now what is the aftermath? Now things are mixed. You know, there is this side of Eugene's perspective that he explained so well, and now there is the other perspective that I was trying to push of polytheism. But now Eugene explained it to me, or even you, and brought about the issue of the hierarchy of beings, and I got to understand it. But the one thing I have noticed is that there is now confusion in Africa in regards to matters of spirituality.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember now what I was discussing. I was discussing about the war in the heavens, and so I'm into explaining the origin of these deities. Why we have this hierarchy of beings, you know. So I told you God created the angelic beings and before humans. Now God found a chaos occurred in the heavens, and so some people had to be transferred from their destination on earth to earth. Now what follows is that when they came here, they started saying, we want to be like God. We will make sure humans worship us instead of you. So there's a book in the Bible. It's called the Book of Enoch. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Book of Enoch.
That has the story of Nephilims.
Nephilims.
Yeah.
So good one. So you see how the Nephilims come into earth? The Nephilims are hybrids. Are hybrids between the angels and the humans. The Nephilims were just born like human babies, but they were ever growing. They didn't stop growing. So they were growing until they became giants, and they couldn't live with humans anymore. Now what happens? They started doing genetics. They started doing crossbreeding. They would take a human and a donkey, human and a horse, fish and pig. These things did not seem okay with God until he decided he was going to wipe out the whole earth using water. Now here comes Noah. You see? Now when Noah came is when we had another starting of human beings. But there was this family of Noah. Each person had their own wives, and these wives were taken from other people outside their own culture. So this is why, in as much as the Nephilims were wiped and those evil things, we still had worshipping of gods penetrate into the new world because of those wives. They carried that practice in their mind. You understand? See, these gods we worship, the Bible tells us they are not even close to God. These are fallen angels. These are demons whom people worship. Africans, we might say the God Son, this and that, but they're not real. They're not real. These are demons who were cast out of heaven, and now they're trying to compete with God himself, God Almighty, and that is why we find them here. Now here comes the second part where God introduces the ultimate sacrifice. Because there was so much sin in the world, God wiped out earth in the first time. The second time God burnt earth was during the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. He burnt them with fire and sulfur and all that. They were consumed. That place was very rich in sin, in homosexuality, in gayism. These people were even offered beautiful wives, beautiful virgins. They refused virgins, but decided they wanted their fellow men. How dirty was that country? Just imagine. Imagine a beautiful woman walking by, but you refuse them and you say, I want that fellow man.
Crazy.
It's crazy. It follows that God even burnt that city. You understand? And those angels, it's documented in the book of Hebrews, in the book of Genesis, that they were walking there. So these gods are fallen demons who are being worshipped as gods today. And because there were so many of them, a third of the angels fell from the heaven, and now they are being worshipped today as gods. In India, we have 30 million gods. 30 million. I can't even count up to a million myself. I can't. So these fallen angels are the ones who Africans were worshipping. And now there had to come another one who was more supreme. You know, the one who was supreme was now Jesus Christ. What follows is that Jesus Christ, before he comes, God says he loved this earth very good. Despite us worshipping other gods, he loved us very good, that he dedicated his only son. If you believe in him and not believe in those false gods and those gods of the sun, gods of the rivers, he is promising life, and he is promising life in abundance if you follow his son. So this son was the ultimate sacrifice. In the past, Africans used to worship, used to shed blood, used to give offerings to these gods, sheep, animal, donkeys. But in the spiritual realm, there is a level of sacrifice you can give. the highest form of sacrifice you can give is a human blood. In fact, I'm told it goes this way. A human child, a male, fetches a lot of power in the spiritual life, a male one, followed by a female human child. Male first, female human child follows. This one can be supported in the book of Genesis, Eugene. You find that God asked for Isaac. Isaac was male. He asked for that son of him to be sacrificed, but God did not allow that. God does not rejoice in human sacrifices. That is the Old Testament God. Even there was a king who was going to war, and this king was almost going to lose. You see, Jerusalem was divided into two. Israel was divided into two. It was divided into Israel and Judah. Now, there was a cousin of Israel and Judah that was called Moabites. There was a cousin. They are sharing the same blood of Abraham. Now, the Israel and the Judahs have come against their own cousin, Moabites. Now they are going to attack them. And the Moabites were not worshipping Jehovah. They were worshipping other gods. And so this Moabite king ran very fast. He went to the cities, closed the door. He took his son and he slaughtered his son there and there. He took his dead son and brought him to the gate that was entering that city. You see, when you enter even Nakuru, you are told, welcome to Nakuru County. You get to another one, you are told. So he took his son and hanged him there for everyone to see. Now he placed them there. When the Israelites came and the Judahs, they found a human sacrifice there and they went away. It is said that they won. They believed that they won because they gave out a human sacrifice. But no, they felt sorry in their heart because they pushed one of their own to sacrifice their own son in that disgusting way. Not just a son, but a prince. The son of a king is a prince, right? Now, this issue of African spirituality, it is good to discuss them to appreciate how we've traveled. I'm not saying what Eugene said the truth, actually. These things have existed. But where did they come from? They came from the heavens and they fell here. Christianity has brought us the authentic God. The authentic God is Jesus Christ. From him, we don't need to sacrifice chicken anymore. We don't need to sacrifice goats anymore. We don't need to sacrifice our daughters and our sons. We just need to go and look at him. He paid the ultimate sacrifice. His blood was shed and he died so that no more sacrifices can be made. He died for the Africans. He died for everyone. It might be that how he was brought to Africa was different, but he does exist and he is there. That is my take on, that is my perspective of African spirituality. I believe we once worshipped false gods until we were introduced to the ultimate God, who is the Son of the Almighty God, the Lord Jesus Christ.
I am a good learner. And when we started this video, I mentioned that I am this modern Christian.
Yeah.
But after hearing what Brother Eugene has mentioned and what you mentioned at some point, I get to change my perspective. I love my roots as an African man in regards to what we believe in God. But at the same time, I also appreciate the Christianity that was brought about, because through that we learn that there is no need for us to shed blood and all this stuff. Yeah, there is no need for all that. But at the same time, I cannot try and erase my roots as an African man. So I need to find the balance. So in regards to Christianity as an African, the balance is it for me. Yeah.
So Eugene, let me ask you a question. Would you rather believe in voodoo, because voodoo is an African religion in West Africa? It's also practiced in somewhere like Haiti, Jamaica. What's your take, brother?
Everything has both good side and bad side. So if you ask me for the voodoo, I might look at it in a maybe good side of the voodoo, than the bad side of it. Just like going to a witch doctor, one of the things which Africans had before. I don't know if witch doctors exist actually.
They do.
So it is just like going to a witch doctor. You what's the intention of you going to a witch doctor? Maybe let me take you back to Africa. Maybe you have a wife who is not conceiving, so you go to a witch doctor. The witch doctor will tell you that maybe you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. Go do this, go do this, and then you'll find an answer. So we Africans, we add a direct way of finding solutions to our problem. But now today, we have scriptures that we look at in the Bible and we follow through. And I'm not saying that through the Bible you're not going to get the answers that you're looking. And I believe that the God that you're praising is the same God that I'm praising. But I think my view in towards the spiritual realm might, for you and I, might differ a little bit. So if you ask me if I still believe in voodoo, I believe in voodoo because for some people, they have found the solution. And all these things have been tied to deities and how we solve our problems. And I can tell you 1,000 times, in the past, when we had drought or when we had problems, we had ways that we speak through our ancestors. Today, modern Christianity, people who have gone to heaven, so maybe if you've heard about people who have gone to heaven, it is just people who have gone to heaven that the people who will tell you that, I saw God, he looks like this. But in the past, God used to send the dead or the people that you knew in the living world, but now they were in the dead world. They could tell you that, you need to do this, you need to do this. They'll say that God have sent me to tell you this. God have sent you to tell me that, But today, and even if you look at the people who are receiving dreams, I don't know if you know this, sister, there's this African American lady who always have dreams in regards to things which happened in Kenya, things which happened in the US, things which are happening in the US. So if you try to look at his line of belief, he uses the Bible. But again, she is so strong in a spiritual world. She is so strong. So that also takes me back to the question of having independent churches. In as much as we have the Christianity, we are not accepting the Christianity with this all totality, because Christianity in its purest form, it was meant for good intention, but it fell on the wrong hands, on the wrong people who are white supremacists, people who saw black people as wrong people. And now, due to the cognitive dissonance that they are suffering from, they won't allow you to know the truth. So they used this same Bible to preach something different, something different. And some people will tell you that Christianity is shaitan. There are people will tell you that, because the people that the Bible were kept in their hands, they totally spread a different information. So in as much as a person might look at Christianity as a something which is not pure when it comes to relationship with God, but at least its intention towards human being and its relation to God, at least people saw manifestation. For example, if we had droughts, and I've used this example for many times, they could have rains just because they talked to their ancestors and they had ways of interacting with their ancestors, So it is just it ends with finding a balance between the two. The excessive of something is bad. The goodness of I can say the excessiveness of something is bad. Yeah.
Welcome to the team.
No, listen. It's not about getting into the team. It's not getting into the team. Sometimes even the Bible that you are reading sometimes can mislead you.
Sure.
So what's your interpretation of this Bible? To black people, but the Bible, it's like a black history. Where did black people came from?
Wow. I get you.
Yeah.
All this we are saying, we are not the authors of this African spirituality
and the Bible. Yeah.
But what I can say is, there's a certain verse that says these matters were not revealed to the knowledgeable. It was not revealed to the wise people of this world, but it was revealed to the babies. The babies have zero knowledge. They don't know even they exist. They just suck their mother's breast, they take their bath, they drink their porridge, They don't have even a sense of time. Such kind of people are the people who the word of truth were revealed to them. I appreciate the Africanism that we have. I appreciate that we acknowledge that there is a supreme being. The idea that we acknowledge that we humans are limited and there's beings who are superior than us, that one I really appreciate. The only difference that might arise is that who is it that we are really worshipping? That's the only difference that we got here. Now, until it has been revealed to you, it has been revealed to you by the Holy Spirit, or rather by someone else, that is when you decide and say, okay, this and this is how things are going to happen. Because even Muhammad, it was revealed to him. Even Abraham, it was revealed to him. Until it is revealed to you is when you know where the truth is. And that's all for today, guys. This is a very lengthy one, but let's end it here. Kindly check out Evans Rayola channel. He really does nice work on discussing matters of Africa, discussing how you as an African can get the knowledge of living in Africa and all good stuff. We also have Eugene Docu Stories. He does very nice work, very, very nice work. Evans also does very, very nice work. Check out Eugene Docu Stories. He publishes some things that myself I find very controversial, but without controversy you don't gain knowledge. So I'd advise you to go and watch his channel. You'll really appreciate. So this is EFK Original Documentaries. Kindly do give me a subscription, give a super thanks if you wish. I will so much appreciate. See you in the next one, guys.